Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about composition in landscape photography. So I've come out today to Winnats Pass in the Peak District. It's near Castleton, a very popular location for landscape photographers because you've got this amazing valley with the road that winds through it, and at this time of year it's pointing right in the direction of sunrise. And you've got that coming through all of the mist and fog rising up over the fields and hills in the distance, and you can get a really great shot here. Some quite classic, some might say cliche shots, but I've never got them myself. I don't know why, I've just never come to this spot before, just never got around to it really. So today I thought I'd come out, finally get those shots, and while I'm here I'll talk a little bit about composition in landscape photography, and we can talk about all of the usual stuff like leading lines, rule of thirds and all that kind of thing. But really what I want to talk about today is intuition, because it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, and I think it's really important. You've got to use your own judgment and just what feels right in your image, because you can apply all of the rules like rule of thirds, leading lines, etc. And it's good to learn those. I'm not knocking them, definitely learn them and try and apply them. But unless you feel right with your image, you're never going to be happy with it. If you just try to apply these rules abstractly, it might not necessarily feel like a good image to you, but you might think, oh well, I've applied the rules so it must be good. At the same time, you've got to do what feels right, and sometimes that might mean breaking the rules. So I got here a little bit late today. We've moved into daylight saving time, and last night I only had about 4 hours sleep because of that. So I got here a little bit late, just in time for golden hour really, and I thought I'll just get my shots straight away. I don't want to miss any of that good light. So I've got all those now, and I think what I'll do is I'll get home, get those on the computer, edit them, and I'll go through them and I'll talk about what I was thinking when I was composing those and why I think the composition works. So I'm going to drive home now. I'll see you there and we'll talk about the composition. So it was awesome to be back out in the Peak District. I really enjoyed it at Winnats Pass, even though it was a little bit earlier than I expected because I forgot about the clocks changing. But great conditions, it was really clear, just a little bit of cloud in the sky which was okay, and the sunlight was coming down through that mist in the distance, and it was some really great conditions, so I was really happy with the shots. We'll put them up on screen now and talk about the composition. Okay, so we'll look at this image first. This was one of the first images I got as the sun was coming up over the horizon. The middle ground mountains are in shade. We've got that kind of silhouette effect really because the sun's coming from behind. But the foreground grass here is really nicely lit up. And we've got the leading line coming from the left, bottom left with the road that comes up through the pass. And that leads our eye right up to the factory, which is the Hope Cement Works. And that's a nice focal point for the image. And if we look at the crop on this, I've just cropped it in just a little bit so that the cement works is landing right on one of our third lines. So using the rule of thirds, divided up the image, and it's falling right on that right hand side line there. And it also works with some of the other grid options, so we can press O on our keyboard to cycle through these options. We see this one, it doesn't exactly line up, but it kind of correlates to these lines. So you've got the foreground hillside here which kind of matches up a little bit with this line. We've got this angle here which is matching up with this one, and this one here which is matching up with this line. So it's not exact, but it kind of does correlate slightly. And also with this one as well, with the triangles, we've got that kind of diagonal line that goes right through the image, lines up with some of these mountains, and then these diagonals kind of correspond to the angle of the mountain here, as does this one. And all these just help to create a nice pleasing image. And I didn't plan to make the image fit to these lines. Like I said, it's just about using your intuition, what feels right, and you often find that later on they will line up with these grids, and that's what helps to create a nice pleasing image. And again with the golden spiral as well, it's not exact, but it comes up and you've got the cement works almost at the apex of the spiral there. And you could say that this image would benefit from losing something on the left hand side. There's a big empty space there, it's quite dark. We could maybe pull that in, but we would then not have the cement works on the third line, and overall I think it just doesn't work as well. For me, that image just works better, even though it's kind of an empty space on the left and quite dark. I still think overall that's what makes the image work. Okay, so next up we've got this one. I was using the 24 to 200mm lens for this one, at around about 100mm, so getting in a little bit tighter there, because there was some lovely light coming through that mist, just creating some great layers, and that just made a really nice effect in the early morning golden hour light. If we look at this one, the factory doesn't land on one of the third lines here, but we can cycle through these again, and we see that it does kind of line up with the spiral almost, and we have got that strong diagonal again which kind of finds itself parallel to the edge of this mountainside here and does intersect with the factory. You could say that these dark silhouetted mountains at the bottom here unbalance the image slightly. There's nothing at the top which is quite as heavy and bold, and what we could do is bring the bottom up to make more of a panoramic shot like that, but I don't think that quite works as well. So we need that bit in at the bottom, and overall I do really like that image, even though it's a little bit bottom heavy. And so finally we'll move on to this one. I switched to a more vertical orientation for this shot. So perhaps not what you would first think of when taking a landscape shot, but it does kind of include some of the scale going from top to bottom, the height of these mountains going through the pass and still manages to capture some of that nice misty background with those nice layers and the light coming through it. And we can see here how this is corresponding to some of the grids. It's not on a third line, the factory, it's just slightly off. It does kind of correspond again with this crisscross layout. So the edges of the mountain sides here are lining up with these grid lines, and it does intersect through the factory once again. But really, it's not lining up very much with any of these grids. So it really was just about intuition, this one, and just what felt right. But I think what makes this a strong composition is the zigzag line which runs throughout the image and draws the viewer's eye up through it and towards the focal point of the cement works. So it starts at the bottom left here with the road, and it brings our eye up the edge of the foreground here, which is nicely lit by the early morning golden hour light. But then it pulls us back towards the left, up the edge of this mountainside here, until we get to the intersecting mountain here, and that brings us back right again, going diagonally upwards towards the focal point of the cement works. And I think that's why this one works. It's got it doesn't fit any of the grids or layouts with the rule of thirds or anything like that, but it just felt right at the time. And sometimes that's what's really important when composing your image. So go out there, learn all the rules, leading lines, rule of thirds, frames, triangles, cropping, everything. It's really important. But also don't be afraid to break those rules. And once in a while, just use your intuition. If it feels right, go with it, and it might just make your image that much better. So that's about it for this video. Massive thanks for watching, everyone. As I say every week, if you're new to the channel and you're not already subscribed and you'd like to do so, you can click down here on the big red button or over here on my face, and that way you'll keep up to date with everything I'm doing each and every week. There's a new video every Sunday morning, 10 AM UK time. So I hope you'll catch me next week for the next one, and until then, thanks a lot everyone, and bye for now.